Hello everybody, welcome to the TriStar Gym channel. Today's episode, I'm doing another AMA. I want to hear your comments and questions on fights, fitness, MMA, jiu-jitsu, boxing, all that good stuff. I'm gonna be kicking it off with comments and questions first on fitness, jiu-jitsu, boxing, and then of course after we're done like 30-40 minutes of that, then we can open it up to all the crazy questions. I know you guys love to ask me philosophy questions and stuff like that, but let's leave that for the later part of the episode. Right now, I'm looking in the chat, guys. Bombs away. It's time to ask me anything. Let's go. Coach, press live by mistake. No, I did not press live by mistake. Yeah, guys, listen, I'm doing it. I threw you guys a curveball. Usually I do it at night, but today I was like, you know what? Let me do it during the day. That way at night I could rest and I can relax a bit. We're nearing the end of Ramadan, so it's getting a little bit tougher, so I'm going to give me a little bit of time to rest tonight. Usually I could take a little nap during the day, but today I decided to skip that and do the AMA early in the afternoon. All right, guys, let's shoot. Just having iftar in the UK. Well, that's from Capitan. Well, Saha. Hope you're having a great iftar. Iftar in the UK. Okay, I'm interrupting UK iftar time, guys. My apologies. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please enjoy. Please enjoy, inshallah. All right, guys, let's go. Coach, how should I begin heavy bag workout? That's from Dar Faison. Well, you know what? I like to shadow box I like to shadow box or do air bike. So you want to break up the sweat, shadow box, warm up those muscles before you hit the bag. And then when you hit the bag, you got to work particular combinations. I like to do sometimes 2-minute rounds. I like to do 3-minute rounds. I like to do 5-minute rounds. And sometimes I do a punch count. So I have those punch devices where you count your punches. I really like those devices. And, if you go into a man's guide to throwing a punch, you have a whole section on combinations on the bag. It's a whole section. And I'm also a big believer in doing intervals on the bag. So combination of intervals for time. Okay, so you're doing a combination for time. It's really, really an excellent way to build cardio and to memorize that combination, because when you're fighting, the window of opportunity is so small. You want to have drilled that combination so much that when the window of opportunity presents itself, you fire away. Okay, so it takes a lot of reps, and also you need a lot of cardio. So doing intervals on the bag is a great way to build your cardio. Guys, don't forget, use promo code GET55 off. I have a best-selling new video, professional shadow boxing. Check it out. Everybody's loving it. But it's crazy because I'm always getting people crying and complaining that they forgot to put the promo code. There's nothing we can do for you guys if you forget to punch in the promo code. The promo code is in the description. It's on the website. It's on your screen right now. It's almost impossible to miss. So please, guys, do not forget to use the promo code and get 55% off anything on jujiclub.com. Salam, Coach. Who do you think wins between Charles and Ilya? That's from OG Bladder. Is that fight official? Because if that fight is official, that's a huge fight. Let me check that out. Ilya Topuria Topology. If that fight is official, because I saw a headline, but is that official? I don't think it's official though. Is it? Because it would be everywhere. No, it's not official yet, but that would be a fantastic fight, guys. In that fight, I would pick Topuria. Because I feel like Charles Oliveira's defense is not up to par to survive a Topuria storm. And his takedowns are good. Last fight against Chandler, he showed us some incredible takedowns. So I wouldn't say he can't win. Of course he can win. But if I had to pick right now, I would pick Topuria. Who wins, Donatello or Leonardo? That's from Ahmed. Ahmed, great question. When I was a kid, I asked myself that many, many times. And I think for sure, with certainty, Leonardo wins. Why? Donatello has a stick. Think about it. A stick. Sticks are great, but not against two swords. Wood versus steel. It would be a matter of time before he destroys his bow. And then he'd be left, using his hands to fight a man with two swords, two katanas. For sure, Leonardo wins. And if you pay attention to the storyline, Leonardo was always the most disciplined. Don't forget, Donatello was into science, science, technology, math, which is great. But when it comes to combat, hand-to-hand combat or weaponry, combat with weaponry, we know that Leonardo was more diligent in his ninjutsu training. Devon Larratt ever come back to TriStar? That's from JB19. No, he hasn't. He booked that one fight For those of you who don't know, Devon Larratt is one of the world's best arm wrestlers, one of the big champions. He booked a fight. He had 4 weeks' notice. He was fighting Thor, one of the strongmen, one of the world champions in strongman, or one of the strongest men in the world, or the strongest man in the world. And Thor had been training for a few years, I think 3 or 4 years. And Devon had 4 weeks to prepare, and he was in Toronto. He's like, hey, can I come up? I said, come on up, man. Come on up. We tried to get him as ready as we can. If you watch the fight, it was actually pretty good. I find the fight was stopped early. I think they were trying to protect Devon, but he went from not doing any boxing training his entire life to fighting a massive human being. I outweighed him by maybe, I think, like 100 pounds. And of course, Devon did judo. He did some grappling. He's not a naive martial artist, but when it comes to striking, he was a complete beginner. So I don't know how much they paid him, but they must have paid him a pretty penny to go up against Thor, and he had a good showing. Good to see you in daytime. That's from Jay. Jay, yes, I thought I'd give it a try. Look, it seems like it might be a good new way to do the podcast. Hi, Faraz. April 12th, I have semi-pro MMA. If you have any advice to help, ? That's from Capper. Well, as of now, I mean, you don't have that much time, right? So it's really, your preparation is pretty done. I would tell you, look, rehearse the fight as much as you can in your head. Shadow box on a regular basis. Do your drills. You still have time to drill hard and spar, but your training should be, the vast majority of your training should be done by now. And I would keep it basic. Whenever you're not sure, just go back to the basics. How to jab properly, how to jab basically, how to throw a right hand, how to throw your hook, how to throw your body shot, how to do a basic double leg. Go back to the basics if you ever have any type of confusion. Coach, what's your opinion on the unclassified JFK files? That's from New Britain Poly. I haven't seen anything glaringly huge on screen. Like I heard they're released. I want to look into it. I'm a big fan of this conspiracy, or all these conspiracy theories. I like to learn more about it, but there's nothing that's jumped out on the headlines so far. I haven't really looked into it. I haven't dug into it at all, but I'm interested to see what they released. How much did they release? Are they really still keeping secrets? Did they release anything that actually changes the outlook on the case? I'm wondering still. Coach, do you still train in the gi? That's from Madro. I trained in the gi for over, I would say, 15 years. So I kind of hung it up, and I'm not really too interested in the gi. I'm open-minded enough, I think, to maybe to say that maybe one day we'll bring it back. But as of now, we're so busy with no gi competition and MMA competition. We're so saturated with dates coming up. It's like putting on the gi. I'd have to teach my students so many techniques they won't need in no gi and in MMA. So I think it dilutes the program a little bit too much. And so I decided to strike the gi out. But there are some students that do gi. They want to do gi and TriStar. So I might do classes of gi, which I won't be teaching myself. I have students that are black belts in the gi. But there's just, the gym is so busy. Like there's so much MMA and jiu-jitsu going on that it's hard to find space on the mat. Because now we have a very strong MMA program, of course, a very strong jiu-jitsu program, and a very good wrestling program. So it's tough for us to add any more. There's just not a lot of space. Coach Paul Fowler has said his hips are severely damaged by kicking in his MMA career. How do you avoid this? That's from Hani Mali. Well, you got to take good care of your body. I highly recommend strong and stable knees. I teach how to do progression standing on the ball. In my opinion, that's the best for knees and hips. It's a massive hip opener, massive. Like I've been kicking for many, many years. My hips are super, super healthy. I'm a big believer in squatting, of course. I teach squatting and lunging. There's a proper way to squat, of course. I'm a big believer in box squatting and lunge matrix. It's all in there. It will take care of your hips. Now, I named it strong and stable knees, but it's definitely super important for your hips. One day I will do a strong and stable hip, of course, because there's more to know about hips. But in my opinion, the best things for hips, the best is squatting on the ball. You get nice and low on the ball and you're standing on it. You're going to see your hips. They're going to open up. They're going to relax. They did a really interesting test on flexibility. People who use the stability ball quickly increase their flexibility. Why? Because when you're on the stability ball, your brain thinks you're falling. So there's a reflex in your nervous system to release the muscle, to relax the muscle. If you ever seen somebody who gets knocked out or falls, they go limp. Why do they go limp? The brain, once it knows you're falling or thinks you're about to fall, it relaxes the muscle. Why does it relax the muscle? Because if your muscle is tight, you can injure yourself as you fall. Okay, so you're more likely to injure your joints if you fall in a stiff state. So you'll see most people when they fall or get knocked out, they fall in a limp fashion. Okay, now it does happen sometimes they're stiff. That's another reason. The body protects itself for different threats. But one major threat, whenever your body thinks it's falling, it relaxes the muscle. So the stability ball tricks your brain into thinking you're falling. So they'll measure your flexibility, then they'll put you on a stability ball, kind of jostle you around, and then they test your flexibility again, and the flexibility immediately increases. Why? There's a reflex in the nervous system. So when you're standing on the ball, it opens up your hips like nothing else. Why? Your body thinks you might fall. It relaxes the system. Then the more your body relaxes, the more your body gets triggered by the ball. Then the ball triggers your nervous system. It relaxes the legs even more. It relaxes the hips even more. I think it's a phenomenal way to not only strengthen the stabilizers in your hips, but to also get new ranges of motion in your hip. No, don't train for fun. Okay. I'm teaching kids BJJ at a mosque. What do you focus on, and how do you like to structure your kids' class? That's from Harris. Harris, I really believe that you should start with like tumbling. Okay, so cartwheel, shoulder roll, back shoulder roll, stripping up and down on the mat. Because here's the thing, kids don't know how to move their body. You got to teach them basic mechanics, like how to move your body. So like arm circles, you warm them up. The warm up is super important. I don't like to do that with adults, especially like well-seasoned athletes, because they already know how to move their body. Okay, but children, it's really early on in their career. It's really about how to move your body. And I think like cartwheeling is super important. Shoulder rolls, tumbling on the ground, like the basic. You don't have to get into full gymnastics, but just the basics. And then the techniques have to be really super simple. I have a rule of 3. When I teach kids, there's 3 things. If I'm going to teach them how to do a double leg, I'm just going to say 3 things. If I teach them how to do a guard pass, it's 3 things. And it's always the simplest guard pass. So it's like throw the feet to the side, 1 step, knee on belly. Throw the feet to the side, 1 step, knee on belly. And another thing I used to do with kids that was very successful, I would have the parents who are watching come and join. Come and join and help assist your child in doing the 3 steps, because all you have to do is remember 3 things. Now the parent's going to help him. Throw the feet to the side, 1 step goes here, knee on belly. You simplify. So a really, really good warm-up that helps them learn how to move their body. When you teach techniques, the techniques have to be simple. And then the rule of 3. The rule of 3 is like 3 simple ideas. I also use the rule of 3 sometimes with my adult students. Sometimes I know this position is a bit complicated, and here's 3 very important things you need to remember. Just remember these 3 things. And then I'll show the move again in a few minutes, and I'll add another 3, big 3. Okay, so you get in a position, what are the big 3? What's the big 3 moves I need from here? So I call it the big 3. It's really, really important. You can see that my instructionals sometimes are structured like that as well. What are the 3 things I need to remember? As I get more experience, you can give me a new 3 things. You got to put things in importance, in priority. What's the most important thing? Okay, let's give them that. What's the second most important thing? What's the third most important thing? As my students get more mature, I start giving them more and more key details. Does Israel have a lot of control and influence on Canadian politics like they do here in America? That's some New Britain poly. New Britain, I believe they do. I believe that the entire West is heavily influenced, because Hollywood, big money, large corporations, a lot of them are head by people who sympathize with Israel. Now, why is that? Well, for a long time, people were trying to harm and eradicate Jewish people. So Jewish people over time realized, hey, we better become rich, powerful, key positions. We better become the linchpins in society, because throughout the years, if you look at Jewish history, and I've studied Jewish history in university, actually. I guess I took ancient Judaism and Jewish history. I believe in the Abrahamic faith. I'm a Muslim, so I want to study Judaism. I studied Christianity for many, many years. I still do to this very day. And the Jewish people in the ancient world were very, very particular. They were the oddballs of the ancient world. Now, back then, they were not, advanced in science and in mathematics or history, or technology. They were advanced in monotheism. That was their thing. The whole world was polytheistic, meaning they believe in multiple gods. And the Jew was the oddball that lived as a monotheist. He didn't believe in any gods except one God, Hashem. Okay. The pagans disliked the Jewish people because of this. Okay, they disliked them because they would deny their gods. Now, don't forget, Caesar thought he was a god. He was the son of God. Caesar thought, because here's the thing, in the ancient world, people have to remember, in the ancient world, if you were somebody famous, they would call you son of God. If you were a ruler, they would call you son of God. If you had an aura, if you came as a legend, if you were a living legend, to them, they thought, hey, when this person dies, he goes up to God. Okay, so in paganism, they had a lot of different beliefs. Okay, one major belief was that if somebody's the ruler, if somebody's high importance, if somebody's a legend, he won wars, he conquered his enemies, he did something great, he brought great resources to the country, he's a legend, God blessed him, God chose him, and God's raising him up. So they would make statues of you, paintings of you, your name would be known. Like, for instance, Alexander the Great. Some people thought he was divine. He was partly divine. He's the son of Zeus. Zeus interfered in humanity and granted this man some skill, some talent. Right? How come he's so powerful? How come he's so successful? Well, in the pagan mind, God or Zeus or one of the pagan gods is favoring him. He chose him. Now, the Jewish people at that time would say, no, that's not true. None of that is true. He's just human like everybody else. There is no man that is a god. There is no such thing. All men are mortal, and there's only one God. So the pagans disliked that. Now, there were many Jewish revolts, and it was all about the pagans trying to get Jewish people to believe in more than one God. So, for instance, Caesar wanted to put a statue of himself in the temple. The Jews rebelled. There was a major war. They burned down the temple, etc. There's a lot of history to know. But just know this. The Romans crushed the second temple. They burned it in the year 70. They exiled the Jews. The Jews were the oddballs of ancient history. Why? Because they believed in one God where everybody, almost the entire world, believed in multiple gods. And it was offensive to them that these people don't worship or acknowledge our gods. It was offensive. It was insulting to the pagans. Later on, you have the Bible, the New Testament being written. If you read the New Testament, for those of you who haven't read it, the bad guy in the story is the Jewish people. Like in the book of Matthew, if you read the book of Matthew, it's quite aggressive in terms of the Jews. There's actually a passage that says, if it's a Jewish person speaking from a crowd, he says, if Jesus is the Messiah and we're wrong, like we're pushing to have him executed here, his blood is on our hands and our children. So in the Gospel of Matthew, the Jewish people are taking full responsibility for the death of Jesus. Now, I'm not saying this is true. I personally don't believe that. Okay? I'm just saying in the text of the gospel, this is what's being said. So the ancient world didn't like Jewish people. Why? Because they were monotheistic. Then when monotheism was spreading, the bad guy in the New Testament was the Jewish person. Because if you read this story quite carefully, Pontius Pilate is like, I wash my hands of it. Literally, he brings out water. He washes his hands. He's like, it's not me that wants to kill this guy. I see no fault in this man. It's this group over here. Who's the group? Well, it was the Jewish people. So now Europe converts to Christianity. They have their text, their holy text, and they're very, very angry with the Jewish position here. So that's another reason why they had so much Jewish persecution. So throughout these generation after generations, hundreds and hundreds of years, Jewish people started to get really smart and start saying, look, if we're going to survive in this hostile environment, we're going to have to get these elite positions. Now, there's another major reason why you might notice that a lot of Jewish people are super rich, okay? Because there was a time where Christianity, you were not allowed to lend money for interest, It's quite fascinating because in the Islamic world, you're not allowed interest. In the Christian world, today you are allowed interest. But for a long time, for hundreds of years, it was considered forbidden to have interest. So what did the Jewish people do? The Christian people do. They said, look, Jewish people could not own land. They had discrimination. They would discriminate against Jewish people by not allowing them land. But you can deal with interest because for us, you're already a sinner. You don't believe in Jesus, you're a sinner. So to them, it's like, they don't care if Jewish people sin. Now, the Christians at the time didn't understand the power of compound interest. By allowing only Jews to be lenders, and you could look this up because, this is history. They became extremely rich. Over time, you have these incredibly rich families. Intergenerational wealth. Because the Christians didn't understand the power of compound interest. Then when they figured it out, they flipped. They're like, interest is not haram no more. It's not illegal no more. So you have it's quite a complex history, but the Jewish people got really smart, really careful, because so many people were trying to end them. They were trying to persecute them. Now, I'm not for persecuting Jews. In Islam, we're against persecuting Jews. Now, we can fight with a Jewish person who's obviously, fighting with us. We won't fight with a Jewish person because they're Jewish. You can get into a fight with a Jewish person like you can get into a fight with an Asian person, an atheist, a Christian, another Muslim. We can have a squabble for sure, but never because they're Jewish. That's not a thing. In Islam, in the Muslim world, there was never a Holocaust or Jewish genocide. Never happened. It's quite the contrary. Jewish people were rescued by Muslims over and over again throughout history, saved by Muslims. Like there's a famous Jewish professor, David Wasserstein, is a Jewish scholar, he's a master of Jewish studies, and he says, look, Islam saved Jewry. Jewry would not exist without these Muslims. These Muslims came and saved us from the Inquisition. So we have a rich history, mostly good. Mostly. There were some bad times, but those bad times were done by extreme rulers who we think today were wrong. They were wrong to do those things. Now, I don't want to say Muslims never wronged anybody. Of course they did. But not the early Muslims, not the ones who did it the right way. Because in Islam, you're not supposed to wrong anybody. You're never supposed to do anything that's unjust. Now, living up to that standard, very difficult. Now, I also, when I see what's going on in Israel today, Palestinians being killed, I don't blame Judaism. I blame their racist nationalistic government. Because in Judaism, you're not allowed to steal. You're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to murder. And thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder takes precedent over any other rule. That's why you have the 10 Commandments, right? The 10 Commandments are like, here's Judaism made simple. These are 10 things you should never, ever commit. And 2 of those is thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder. That's happening every single day. I don't blame their religion. I blame their ultra right-wing extremist Israeli nationalist, especially their government. Now, we all have our crazies. The Jewish people have their crazies. The Christians have their crazies. The Muslims have their crazies. The atheists have their crazies. Let's not bring up World War II. The bloodiest century in human history was all driven by Darwinian thinking. It's us or them. The struggle is real. Hitler was inspired by Darwinist thinking. He was like, look, it's either we kill them or they kill us, and that's the struggle, and there's no morality, etc. He was heavily influenced by Nietzsche. Nietzsche was influenced by Darwin. It's a complex topic, but believe me when I tell you, the bloodiest century in history had a lot to do with atheism. There is no morality. There is no right and wrong. Now, there was a lot of bloodshed by people who were religious and people who were not religious. That's why I don't blame necessarily the ideologies. I'm telling you, it's the people. The people are the problem. And the interpretation of religion, the interpretation of our laws, they could always be twisted. And you could see the spin. The spin is quite embarrassing, actually. Like, you could see the media, the Western media, doesn't say one thing about the genocide going on. Like, the Israelis will bomb, kill, murder. They'll go into like a hospital, burn a hospital, which is completely illegal. And the Western media won't say one thing. You'll see headlines like, bullets find their way in young girl, in 4-year-old girl. Bullets find their way in 4-year-old girl? No. Israel murders 4-year-old girl. That's what the headline should be. But they write things like, bullets find their way in 4-year-old girl. Like, what? Like, you have Doctors Without Borders. These are doctors that go to foreign countries to help medical emergencies where there's not enough medical resource. These doctors have no incentive. They're from all over the world. They're like, oh, we're seeing on a daily basis bullet wounds to the head of children. This is purposeful, right? It's not a stray bullet. They're aiming for the head. They're shooting them in the head. And they're saying this, we're seeing this on a daily basis. Nothing in the media, nothing about this. It's always like independent media on YouTube or whatnot that are writing their articles. Yesterday, 2 days ago, a reporter was killed. If an Arab had killed a reporter, it would be all over Western media. You're not supposed to shoot a reporter. That's a war crime. You know, they're always wearing bulletproof vests, a helmet, and it says press. They killed him. The Western media never talks about it. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. I'm telling you, this is all, you know, the internet is forever. This is all going to be remembered. It's all going to be documented. It's going to be humiliated. Their children's children are going to be humiliated. They're going to be embarrassed that their forefathers or their parents were genocide sympathizers. It's disgusting. The media is disgusting. And yes, we're heavily edited, boycotted, silenced. It's sad. I hope everybody out there listening to this does something every day to help speak up for the genocide going on in Palestine. Now look, I don't believe what happened on October 7th was right. I think I spoke up against that. I did that many times on this channel. I think killing innocent civilians is always wrong, internationally and according to the Quran and the Torah. For the secularist, it's wrong. For the Muslim, it's wrong. For the Jew, it's wrong. For the Christian, it's wrong. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, etc. Don't give a religion a bad name by saying, no, it's okay. When you make excuses for this kind of behavior, you're making religion look bad. Never use religion to make excuse for the death of innocent people. Now, combatants, they're fair game, internationally speaking, in terms of everybody's religion. Okay, we're in a conflict. You're a soldier. I'm a soldier. We could fight each other. Yes, we can take prisoners of a certain age, fighting age, etc. Yes, there are certain things that, because don't forget, what was the objective of October 7th? There are literally about 5,000 Palestinians, many of whom are children, in prisons in Israel, they're hostages. They call them prisoners, but the Palestinian, this is before October 7th. The Palestinian situation is unbearable. It's a ticking time bomb. People can't live like this. Regardless, the whole mission was to take prisoners for a prisoner swap. You have 5,000 of our women, children, and men. We want them back. You know, we don't want them being tortured in your prisons. And guys, I want you to pay attention to one very important, crucial detail. And then I'm going to go to the comment section because I know I've been talking for a long time. Look at when they release prisoners. The Israeli hostages, when the Palestinian hostages, when they're released from Israel, they're always starving, beat, traumatized, eyes bulging out of their head. Guys, when your eyes are bulging out of your head, that's a sign of torture. That's a biological reaction to being tortured. When they released the Israelis from captivity with Hamas, don't forget, Hamas is broke compared to Israel. They're all well fed. No, zero rape so far. Because if they were raped, it would be on every newspaper everywhere. I haven't heard one yet, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Guys, if I'm wrong, please, because I've been looking. Put it in the comment section where I can find the source. Please. Okay? Please, I'm begging you. Find me. I want to know. Not only are they don't look beaten and starved, they're actually testifying. I remember one of the, because I was interested, like, did they torture them? Did they hurt them? And she was saying, this older woman, she's like, we were well treated. I have to admit that. This must be known. We were well treated. Now, there was another one famously recently that when the hostage was released, he was kissing Hamas. He kissed 2 Hamas soldiers. He grabbed them and kissed them. Then he grabbed another one. And then there was these girls that were released. And this one went viral as well. The girl was looking at Hamas and they were giving each other a look like they were in a relationship. Like she looked like she was in love with the guy. It went everywhere. You could look it up. She's looking at him, he's looking at her, and you could see, he's wearing his. So if anybody can prove me wrong, please do, and I'll retract my statements. I'm happy to always acknowledge the facts. I'm more than happy. I'm always happy to accept the facts. Okay, please hold me to that. I definitely will always hold true to the facts. Okay, guys, with that said, I'm going to be taking comments and questions. Coach, Israel has tapped into your Wi-Fi. Am I lagging? Oh, yeah, it must be massive lag. Okay, guys, sorry, apologize for that. Next time I'll, actually, you know what? Hold on, I might know why. Hold on a second. Excuse me. One of my sons is home, so he's not at school today. So I think he's using the internet. Okay, guys, I apologize for the lag. Okay, he says he's not on it. Maybe it's because I'm on the internet during the daytime. I'm not sure. Yeah, the Matrix got me, guys. Once I started talking, YouTube picked up the word. We're gonna have to start using code words. Hi, Coach. What's your mindset of your life philosophy to success that you can apply to all facts of your life? A bit like Buvaisar Saityev, rest in peace, who bases philosophy on Boris Pasternak's poem. Boris Pasternak's poem. Oh, let's see. Boris Pasternak's poem. Boris Pasternak poem. Buvaisar. Let's see what comes up. Let's hear this poem. Buvaisar. Okay, let's hear this poem. Okay, let's see. Where can I find this poem? Guys, if you don't know, Buvaisar Saityev was one of the greatest wrestlers in history. 3-time gold medalist. Could have been a 4-time gold medalist. Okay, I think I'm playing a video here. Hold on.
Buvaisar Saityev would read Boris Pasternak, which is a famous Russian poet, won the Nobel Prize before every match, and he kind of captures that ethic. So this is the poem. I'll say it in Russian,
okay,
and then in English.
Please.
Okay. Другие по живому следу пройдут твой путь за 5 до 5, но поражение от победы ты сам не должен отличать, и должен ни единой долькой не отпуститься от лица, но быть живым, живым и только до конца. I know there's a bunch of Russian people that would appreciate that. The translation a bit crappy. It's very difficult to translate the Russian language, but it's the others step by step will follow the living imprint of your feet, but you yourself must not distinguish your victory from your defeat, and never for a single moment betray your credo or pretend, but be alive. Only this matters, alive and burning to the end. So this is the end of a poem that represents the fact that fame, most of the poem says that fame, recognition, money, none of that matters. The winning and losing, none of that matters. What matters is the purity of the art, just giving yourself completely over to the art. So like others will write your story, others will tell whether you did good or bad, others will inspire using your story, but as the artist, so in the case of Pasternak, he's a poet, writer, wrote Dr. Zhivago, the art, you should only think about the art and the purity of it and the love of it.
All right, guys, I hope you were able to hear that. I thought that was pretty cool, very noble. For me, I'm more calculated than that. I don't put so much maybe emotion in it, but I'm more about like problem solving. I have a whole belief in like every time I'm in the gym, every time I'm training, it's all about problem solving, how to get more efficient, how to do more with less energy. It's all about that. So that's my North Star, I would say. When I'm working, I'm always watching very carefully. I'm always thinking. I'm always observing. I'm always reflecting on what happened in the practice room, how we can get more efficient. And every time I discover something new or somebody shows me something new, it blows my mind that I didn't think about it. I'm like, why didn't I think about it? That's what I was looking for. How come I couldn't, I always ask myself, how come I didn't come up with that? How come I didn't solve that problem? Now, of course, there are people all over the world doing jiu-jitsu, and we stumble around. We stumble on sometimes good answers, and sometimes we try different things. We experiment, so we discover new things. One person can't figure everything out, but I always try to ask myself those kind of questions. How did somebody figure out that problem, and how could I, answering that question, how could I figure out the next one? So I'm more of a problem solver. I would say that's more of my approach. There's no such thing as victory or defeat. That's from C-Dog. I'm going to call you C-Dog. Well, C-Dog, if me and you are fighting and I knock you out, silly, you can't really say after I didn't win, can you? No. Winning and losing happens. Look, what if we're grappling and I put you in a choke and you tap? I mean, are you going to argue you're the winner? Can you really be the winner now in that case? I don't think so. So, right? No, there is winning and losing. I think we got to be, we got to be honest about that. But there's what you do after you lose. We can't be in denial about winning and losing. If you're playing football and you look at the scoreboard and the other team's winning 21 and you have 0, well, you didn't win. You didn't win. You can't say, well, I played with more heart, therefore I won. No, it doesn't make sense. Okay? There are ways to tell who's the winner. Now, sometimes a fight is so close. I agree. One guy got the win, but there was no loser in that fight. It was so close that, to me, it could have gone either way. And I agree, sometimes there's not a loser. But sometimes there's a clear winner, my friend. Sometimes there is, and I think you got to make your peace with that. Come on, C-Dog. That's from Ahmed. You coined my sentiment perfectly. Come on, C-Dog. Please take me through the process of being coached by you. That's from G. G, the first thing, when I train somebody, I always evaluate them first. It's like a doctor. I always say it's like going to a doctor, what makes this machine work better? I look at a human being as a machine. What can I do to make this machine run better? What's wrong with the machine? What's costing this machine energy? Why is this machine not successful? Or where is it successful and where is it not successful? And how can I change that? So for me, I do an assessment. From my years of training, from all the things I've learned, I'll ask myself, what's the one thing I can do? Because I can only do one thing at a time. What's the one thing I can do that makes the biggest difference? So that's the process. Wow, I caught it, coach. Long time watcher. Have you checked out Hassan Spiker's work? Hassan Spiker. Sounds familiar, that name. Let me look up Hassan Spiker. Sounds very familiar, that name. Oh, yes, actually I have. He's a very intelligent guy. Yes. Hassan Spiker. Philosopher and comparative scholar of Islamic, Greek, and modern thought. Yeah, actually, I've listened to a few of his lectures. The man is quite brilliant. I have to listen to more of his works. I have some of his works saved. He's really a brilliant human being. Really a brilliant human being. MashaAllah. Coach, how to crouch with one arm in the air if I have a bad knee? What's that? Coach, how to crouch with one arm in the air if I have a bad knee? That's from Ahmed. Ahmed, you got to get strong and stable knees. You don't need to crouch down with one hand up in the air. You have to build your way up. Because in the Matrix, guys, the lunge Matrix, there is an exercise where you crouch down with one arm over your head. But that's only if you've built up to that. Okay, so you got to work through the progressions. Everything is progression, guys. All of fitness, all of training is progressions. We test and then we measure and we retest. We do our workouts, we retest. We do our workouts again, we retest. If there's no gain, something's wrong with our workouts. Okay, so we're always training to beat our previous personal records. Coach, can someone from the world can be coached by you? What's the coach? That's from GG. Yes, anybody in the world can be coached by me. Okay, just got to come to TriStar Gym. I'm there every day. I give 2 or 3 classes a day. That's also including training professionals. So I'm in the gym all day long, friends. So if you want to train with me, you can do my classes. Salam, brother Firas from Oldham, UK. Well, salam alaikum, MDN. Welcome. Welcome to the chat. For us, would you get your kids homeschooled or private if LGBTQ stuff got even worse in public schools? That's from Jesse. Guys, I don't believe in running away. I think you should spend more time talking to your kids than the school does. Because for sure, if you send your kids to school and that's all the information they get, they're going to become like thinking like them. It's so important to spend a lot of time with your kids. Okay, I go to the gym with my kids. I eat with my kids. I cook with my kids. I spend a lot of time with my kids. And we sit and we talk. We have a lot of talks about everything. You know, especially like when we're driving to the gym, they could talk to me about absolutely anything. Their mom is not there. They could say or do anything they want, and I'll respond, and I won't get mad. I'll just talk to them like regular people. Now, my kids are older. I wouldn't do that when they're super young, but we talk about everything. Why is it okay for them to do that and not us? We have a different way of life. We have a different way of thinking. And why do we think this way? And what's the benefit? Why are we this way and they're in another way? Now, for them, it's not haram. It's not forbidden for them. For us, we don't live this way. Now, why do we live the way we do? And why do they live the way they do? And what consequences is there for this lifestyle, for our way of life, for their way of life? You know, I tell my kids, if you're in a certain way of living, you can't have a family. Like if I was living like that, you wouldn't exist. Imagine 100% of the population was of this persuasion. The birth rate would plummet to zero. Humanity would end. Humanity would end. Literally, humanity would end. If everybody was same sex, you know what I mean? If everybody. If there were no men and women getting together anymore, humanity would vanish. And is it learned behavior? Well, if you go to psychologists, everything is nature and nurture. It's a combination of the two. It's always a combination of the two. So I tell my kids, I always give you the nurturing that's reflects your physical body. It's only a small percentage that's going to have a physical body and feel otherwise if we don't condition them to. So I always tell them, look, there'll always be exceptions. And then that's a fitna. It becomes a challenge to you. Okay, so we have terminology, and I explain this to my kids. But you're born a certain way. I want to give you the most success in survival reproduction I can. That's why I teach you how to be polite, friendly, kind, sociable. And I taught you that you were a boy. You were a man. You're growing up to a man. And here's what a man does. Here's the role model you can copy for being a man. You're going to need the software. You have a hardware, and then you have a software putting between your ears. And since they're very young, I'm teaching them. Well, boys do this, girls do that. I've been teaching them. So for instance, I remember when my sons were young, I used to train them. They used to take off their shirt. Before training, they would take off their shirts. We're training in the house now. Okay, they were young. I'd make them do drills. They'd take off their shirts, not to get their shirts sweaty. Now, I remember my daughter, as she was getting older, now that my daughter's the younger one, I'd be like, okay, guys, time for training. My daughter would take off her shirt. And I would tell her, no. We would laugh. It's cute. She's very young. She's like 3 or 4 years old. You're a girl. You got to keep your shirt on. Oh, I'm a girl. Yeah, girls keep their shirt on. Boys can take their shirt off. Now, you might out there say that's discrimination. No. One day she's going to develop, as a woman, and she's going to have to cover herself, and she's going to have to make sure that people don't see that part of her body. Now, men, we can go to the beach, take off our shirt. And there are reasons for why and why not. A man's, when he sees a woman breast, he's going to get more aroused than a woman when she's going to see a shirtless man. Now, a woman can be aroused by a shirtless man, of course, but 99.9% of assaults of a sexual nature men are the perpetrators. The vast majority of victims are the women. Now, there are also male victims. If you go in prison statistics, if you include prison statistics, most rape happen to men, man on man. Those happen in prison. Exclude that. Let's say it's an outlier. You're not expecting your family to go to prison. Now it's man on female. The females are the victim. So women should take extra measures in protecting themselves. Why? They're the ones most at risk. So I teach my daughter to protect herself. Okay, guys, back to the comments and questions. You're a gentleman and a scholar, sir. Big inspiration. May Allah bless you and your family. Alhamu Amin. Jason Green, Jazakallahu khair. That's very sweet of you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the super chat and the blessing. Jazakallahu khair. And the same to you, inshallah. What else we got here? Scorch. In a street fight, would you personally rather fight a grappler or a striker, same skill level? Which would you think would be far better, you would fare better against? That's from Scorch. Scorch, I think I would fare either way, wouldn't matter to me. But I prefer grappling. Why? Because less chance we hurt each other. Okay, so personally, if I win a street fight, I'd want to not hurt the guy. I don't want to send the guy to the hospital all busted up and hurt and broken, and I wouldn't want that for myself. So grappling would be, of course, if we accept that the guy tap, because imagine like you get the guy in an arm bar and you break his arm and then you keep fighting. The guy wants to keep fighting. He doesn't, like, let's say I put a guy in a choke and he tapped, I would let him go. And it's happened to me. I was a security guard, so I would choke guys and they would quit and I'll pin them and say, look, you learned your lesson. And it would happen sometimes, they would like beg for mercy and I would let them go. And most of the time they wouldn't fight back anymore. They realized, hey, this guy could have killed me. Not that I would, but I could have put him to sleep. Now I have had guys I put to sleep as well. But I can revive them. I can, send them on their way without injuring them, which is always preferable. But if you're punching a guy, kneeing a guy, and elbowing a guy, you're probably going to break bones in his body. You might concuss him. You might really, injure the guy, especially if you knock him out and his head hits the cement. Like you could even kill somebody. Okay, so you want to avoid that, right? You want to avoid the nasty injuries. But imagine you're fighting with somebody, you put him in a chokehold and they tap and you let him go and then they keep fighting. That's happened to me as well. Well, now, he's going to get punishment. He's going to get hurt. Once upon a time that happened to me. The guy started fighting back again and I had to break his wrist. I put him in a position. I had him in his arm behind his back like in a kimura, and I grabbed his wrist and I broke it. And when I broke his wrist, he realized, he felt the pain and he heard the noise. He realized like he better stop. And then he calmed down completely and he was much more much more compliant. But the original time I choked him unconscious, I revived him, and then he started fighting with me again. He was calm for a while, then he started getting aggravated and he started fighting with me again. Well, this time I took him across the street and I put the paint on him. When I put the paint on him, he understood that this is not going to end until he calms down. But it's always better than kneeing a guy in the face, slamming his head on the ground with after punching him or whatnot. It's always better to use grappling. It's always safer. Now, if there are multiple attackers, you have no choice. If the guy's punching you, you might have no choice. That's why I always tell even my grappling students, you should have 1 day a week where you do boxing. You do a boxing routine. It's so important. I'm not going to go over it again, but it's like super important. Half guard is one of the best guards for MMA because it closes the distance, according to John Denahar. That's from Studio. I personally don't agree. Okay, now this is a difference of opinion. Me and John, we trained together a long time. We agree on a lot. We disagree on certain things. I personally don't like half guard for MMA. Now, you have to know half guard. In my opinion, you have to know half guard. You can't say I don't do half guard. You have to know half guard. But in my opinion, it's the lesser of the guards. That's just my opinion. I ask you guys, who in MMA is using half guard successfully? There's not many names. Can't think of anybody. And can I ask you, who in jiu-jitsu at the highest level is using half guard consistently? Who's winning? Who's the half guard master who's winning, getting on the podium? I can't think of any. They're all De La Riva guys. They're all K-guard guys. They're all like inverted guard guys. They're all close. There's some close guard, really good close guard guys, but there's no half guard guys. Who in MMA is doing half guard at the highest level? Almost nobody. Why? Half guard is complicated. And in MMA, you have so many things to learn. Why are you going to spend so much time in half guard? And here's the thing. Half guard on top is quite simple. I teach you guys how to go deep with a whizzer and punch with the other hand. It's not that complicated. So the guy on the bottom has to spend so many hours on half guard just to maybe, if he gets in that position, it could work for him. No. I've seen half guard work in MMA, particularly Nogueira. Nogueira was really good at half guard. Shogun was very good at half guard. Very good. Machida got on top of him in the World Championship fight, and Shogun used half guard to get back up to his feet. I'm not against half guard. I think half guard is very good. It's complicated, so a lot of guys screw it up because there's so much to do in MMA. You can't spend hours and hours learning one position that you might not even get to in the fight. I think Shogun was good. I think Nogueira's half guard was good. Also, Nogueira had a very good close guard as well. I think half guard can be very good. However, look, I'll tell you guys something. I swear to you. Every time somebody puts me in half guard, I just absolutely annihilate them. I crush them. I'm not scared of half guard. I don't have a big fear of half guard. It's been a long time. I haven't had somebody put me in the half guard and I was like, whoa, I'm really in danger here. I got to get out of this thing. I feel that the guy's options on top are better. That's just my opinion. Coach Zahabi, I'm 1 year out from having 3 discs fused in my neck and I'm nervous about returning to jiu-jitsu. Do you have any advice? That's from Ramen Noodle. Ramen, I'm begging you, get strong and stable. Get strong and stable neck. I did a whole video on this. This is a very... Look, you got to start slow. I would recommend... Okay, first get strong and stable neck. Absolutely. I teach you how to use the neck harness. It's super important. Decompression in the neck. Number 2, start with drilling and then fitness. Don't start rolling. And then the next step would be flow rolling. So you do strong and stable. You go to jiu-jitsu class. You just drill. Because don't forget, now that you fuse 3 vertebrae in your neck, you have less mobility. Now the other vertebrae in your neck are going to start to carry the mobility needed for the lack of the other vertebrae that are lacking in mobility. So you're creating a domino effect. You're creating more stress on the vertebrae you didn't fuse. Because now that you have 3 that are fused, the others that are not fused are going to have to compensate for the lack of flexibility in your fused vertebrae. This creates a vicious cycle, a domino effect. We want to prevent that. Okay, in strong and stable neck, I talk about the pain rule. Okay, never have pain that goes more than 7 out of 10. Okay, if you're doing anything that brings your pain level to more than 7 out of 10, stop. Okay, so I live with this rule. I'm 45 years old. I train every single day. I train twice a day, most days. Okay, I have 0 injuries, very little injuries. Okay, start with flow rolling and then roll with only people you trust until you rebuild that confidence in your neck. I hope your neck is stronger than ever. Eventually, if you follow these 3 rules, I hope your neck becomes stronger than ever. Do you think that the falling birth rate, are more a result of culture or level of development in a country? In Saudi Islamic, but below replacement levels. That's from Oscar Newey. Both are true. Okay, so the fall of virtue. Okay, so people are not virtuous anymore. Now people are all about, people don't care about family no more. It's all about me, I. Social media has created a boom in narcissism. I don't know if you've ever read, if you've kept up with psychology. In psychology journals, they're finding that more and more people are becoming more and more narcissistic since the coming of apps. Since apps have been a thing, people have become more and more narcissistic. People don't care about other people. They care about themselves, their image, their name, me, I. As a consequence of that, people have become more and more lonely. They've become more and more lonely. They don't have a connection with other people. Everybody's become more isolated. Everybody's become their own personal island. We're interacting more on social media, but not in person. So there are cultural shifts and there are economical shifts. The richer people get, the less children they have. You're right. The economics has a major role to play. So there are birth rates that are falling in other areas, and it doesn't have to do really with necessarily money or culture. It's a mix of the two. It's not one or the other. So for instance, South Korea, the birth rates are plummeting. In Asia, Japan, birth rates are plummeting. There are places in the world where it's how hectic and difficult life is. So in Japan, it's just too stressful to have kids. There's no space in the country and it's too stressful. The competition is too fierce, meaning the workspace. So for instance, in Japan, when you're working, you're not allowed to leave until your boss leaves. Why? Because every Japanese corporation is hyper competitive. When they hire you, you have to be ready to work as late as the boss. You can't be like, hey, I finish at 5, that's it. I don't work 1 minute after 5, I have my rights, this and that. No, they'll fire you. There's 10,000 other guys who want your job. When you quit, you can't just quit your job. You have to write an apology letter, right? Why would you quit your job if this company is the best? Like, they have a culture, they have a business culture that's so extreme in Japan. So hyper competitive that people are like, look, I have to give my whole life to this company They can never quit. They can never be lazy. They have to work overtime. So having a child is like impossible. Like their whole life is dedicated to this company. So that's how sociologists explain what's going on in Japan. It's a whole different problem than what we have maybe here in the West. In the West, it's more about hookup culture. We went from, finding the one true love and getting married, that kind of culture, to hook up. And now, you have a lot of women hooking up with the same particular group of men because the men became more and more players. Now it's become virtuous to kind of be a player. Both women and men are playing with each other. And then you have this new thing that when I was growing up wasn't a thing. Involuntary celibates. Like these group of guys who are being like ostracized from society. Which is kind of crazy because when you pool men together like that, what's going to happen? Well, it's not going to be good, right? They're going to get angry. They're going to get really upset that they're not able to, find somebody. The system is rigged against them. And that's, in my opinion, is going to have a disastrous consequence. It's going to get worse and worse, and then something bad is going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm just assuming that men not being able to tap into a resource, get their fair share of the pie, in my opinion, that always causes some type of revolution or culture that's going to shift in a way that's going to counteract that. What's up, Coach? The world... sorry, this is from Shiz, my boy Shiz. What's up, Coach and the world? It's 5:22 a.m. in Australia, Brisbane. Shiz, all these years, I didn't know you were from Brisbane. All these years, I didn't know. Shiz, always the most present guy in the chat room. Rarely ever misses an episode. What's up, Coach and the world? It's 5:22 a.m. in Australia. Thanks for the wake up, Coach. It's true. Ankalev is having immediate rematch. ? That's from Shiz. Shiz, first of all, that's amazing that you woke up at 5:22 a.m. not to miss an episode. Today, I didn't announce that I was doing this episode till only like maybe an hour before. And Shiz woke up. He got the call. He put on his happy face and got in the chat room. Can't miss a chat. Shiz, I love you for that. And next time I'm in Australia, Brisbane, I'm going to find you, Shiz. We're going to hang out. I didn't know you were in Australia. I will commit that to memory. Is Ankalev getting a rematch? I don't know. I don't think they would because it wasn't the most exciting fight and it was quite decisive. So I would be shocked if they give a rematch. I would be shocked. Coach, you missed my super chat earlier. That's from Unique Snoop. Let me look that up here. Unique Snoop. It has expired. Please re-put it in the chat. No need to pay. Just put it back. I'll look out for your name. Apologies for missing your super chat. Do you think oh, I did that one. Okay, hold on. Coach, for the sake of Canada, you have to watch the PBD and Maxime Bernier interview. PBD, Maxime Bernier. Let's look that up. Who is Maxime Bernier? For the sake of Canada, PBD, Maxime Bernier. All right, that was 5 days ago. Poiliev is afraid. Maxime Bernier, the truth about Trudeau, Carney, and Canada's PM elections. All right, I'll look that up. 5 days ago. I won't play it now because I'll get flagged. It's an hour and 28 minutes. I saved it to my list of things to watch. Let's see if it's interesting. Guys, no spamming. If you spam, you will be punished severely. Salam, Coach. Your thoughts on Ibn Arabi's unity of being and where his and your philosophies concur and differ. That's from Polo May. Polo, don't forget, Ibn Arabi never said wahdat al-wujud. Okay, he never said unity of being. He never said that. That was attributed to him later by his proteges. I think Ibn Arabi is very misunderstood. I don't think he was saying the universe, all of existence is God. That's not what he was saying. I think it's completely wrong. It's a misinterpretation. I think most people who read him completely misinterpret him. I think he agrees with everything is subjective. The only true and objective thing in existence is God. Okay, so think about it. Muslim philosophers, Christian philosophers, atheistic philosophers, agnostic philosophers, we're always talking about truth, 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 truth. This thing called truth, the truth, the truth, 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 truth. And then we say, okay, define what this thing you're talking about. And nobody can coin it perfectly. Nobody. Believe me, every definition of truth we come up with has a problem. Like Plato tried to famously do it. He came up with this thing called justified true belief. If you believe something to be true and it comes out true, but you were justified in believing it, and it actually turns out to be true, that's what's true. Man, that's not a good definition at all. Philosophers, I won't bother you with all the details, but we found so many problems with this definition. What makes something true? And look, the Muslim mystics figured it out. Okay, now, most Muslims don't understand this, but Muslim thinking, Ghazalian thinking, is nominalistic. Okay? We're nominalists. We don't believe in, don't forget, Islam is very similar to Judaism, but we have this other thing. Because if you speak to Jewish scholars, this is what they say. They say that Jewish people moved from believing in God, they have one God, but pagans have their gods. We have a relationship with this God. 2, there are no other gods. There's only the God of the Jews. That's it. So they graduated to that type of thinking. Now, this is not me saying this. There's a difference of opinion, of course, in Jewish thinking. Some believe that they are always on monotheistic, and some believe, no, they moved from believing there are other gods. They have a special covenant with this one God. Why do they say that? Because if you look at the first commandment, it says, thou shalt not worship any other gods other than the one true God, Hashem. Whereas in Islam, negates the existence of other gods. Slightly different. It sounds the same, but slightly different. So in Islam, there are no other gods. Islam is actively telling you Zeus doesn't exist. Thor doesn't exist. Not that he's your God and that's your relationship with that God and we have our relationship with this God. Now, for sure, there's going to be Jewish scholars that believe and say that, no, Judaism was always monotheistic and there was no plurality in God. Now, other Jewish thinkers say, no, there was an evolution. Okay? I'm not going to give my opinion on that because I'm not an expert in this, but there was this debate. In Islam, there is no debate. Islam always rejected every single other God other than one God. Okay? So Ghazali developed his understanding and I think influenced Ibn Arabi greatly. I just think Ibn Arabi didn't say this directly. Okay, so what is the truth? Well, we find that the only true thing that's perfectly objectively true is God. That's why we call one of the names of God is Al-Haq, the truth. Not God is true. He's the truth. He's the only objective thing. Everything else is subjective. Okay? Subjective means it depends on something else. Okay, it's a dependent thing. Now think about nature. Okay, what's nominalism? Nominalism is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to point at. It's a really difficult thing. Okay, so I'll give you one example. Okay, imagine I have I'm a ventriloquist. Okay, I have a puppet on my hand and I'm entertaining kids. And the puppet has a personality. He's funny. He makes the kids laugh. And then the puppet has a tummy ache, so he starts growling and his tummy ache hurts, and the kids start to cry. Now, me and you know, watching the puppet show, that, yeah, it looks real, but we know that the puppet is not real. He's just string and cloth, and he doesn't have consciousness. He's not conscious. He's not a sentient being. He's not having an experience of what it's like to have a tummy ache. But the kids, projecting their mind onto the puppet, don't realize that the personality of the puppet is emerging from their own mind. Because they have a mind, they can project their mind onto the puppet. That's why the puppet to them seems like he has a personality, he has likes and dislikes, and now he has a tummy ache. And they sympathize with him because they've had a tummy ache, and maybe they start to get sad and cry. Me and you watching this, we kind of laugh and giggle because the kids are being fooled and they don't know it, and there's no harm really being done to the puppets. So to us, it seems a little bit funny or cute. We explain to the kids, no, don't worry, the puppet is fine, he's happy, he's feeling better now. We entertain their illusion, right? Because we want to be good parents and they don't understand, and as they get older, they'll understand. That puppet, his personality, his tummy ache, that's emergence. That's all metaphysics. It's not true. It's not happening. It's a projection of the mind. The mind is tricking us into believing that's true. Now, do adults like me and you, do scientists like me and you, do logicians like me and you, are they susceptible to the same type of illusion? The answer is yes. Yes, it's abundant and it's everywhere. Actually, it's a pandemic. And when you're a nominalist like Ghazali, like myself and many other thinkers, you see ghosts everywhere. When I say ghosts, I mean like these, what should I call them? Illusions. I see them everywhere, and I see an ocean of people who believe in them. They think they're out there in the world, and they talk about them like they're things in the world. And very educated people, highly educated people, people with PhDs in physics think about this. They think these things are true. But philosophers, we think, oh, that's just a puppet show. It's not real. It's not there. It's not happening. That's a projection of your mind. Now, anybody who studied Greek philosophy, Muslim philosophy, or British empiricism, you know what I'm talking about. Now, there's very few people who did that or studied that or understood this level of thinking. There's very few people in the world. And by the way, Ghazali was the world's first nominalist. He's the first one ever, okay, to actually put it on paper. Okay, let's just say. Nominalism, if you're a nominalist, you can understand Islam. Islam is very strict against these illusions. Very strict. So I'll give you for instance, probably one of the most popular illusions is nature. People always talk about nature. Oh, what happened? What happened there? How come this flower bloomed? Somebody say nature. Look, isn't nature wonderful? Look at nature. As if nature is this thing out there. It's a force out there. It's something out there. When I say the word nature, I mean it as a label for particulars. Okay, so in philosophy, we have a term we call particulars and universals. So, forest is a universal. A tree is a particular. A bunch of particulars make up a universal. So if I have a lot of trees, then I have a forest. Forests don't float around in existence. No. Forests are a byproduct of the imagination. They're emergence. They're projections of the mind. When I see a bunch of trees, I don't say there's 782 trees there because I can't count them, because I don't have knowledge of how many particulars there are, particular trees. I say, look, there's a forest. But the forest is dependent on the trees. If I were to remove every tree, if I burned every tree, there wouldn't be a forest anymore, would there? Universals depend on particulars. Like the puppet depended on me masking my voice, moving my hand, the cloth, the string. The puppet depends on all of these particulars for it to have the illusion of a personality, feelings, etc. Now, imagine you're at a baseball game and you see people doing the wave. Now, you could see, look, there's the wave. The fans are doing the wave. You could see it. But if I told you, look, put the wave in a test tube, measure it, weigh it, you'd be like, no, it's not physical. It's not a physical thing. The wave is an illusion, a byproduct of all these people getting up and down in a sequence. They have to get up and down in a particular sequence. And then you're going to have this illusion we call the wave. But if I want to measure it, hold on to it, grab onto it, it's metaphysic. It belongs to the world of metaphysics. Even though I can't grasp it, I can point to it and say, look, there's something that exists we call the wave. But if there wasn't a human mind, there would be no wave. There would just be particulars going up and down. There would be no such illusion of the wave. It's mind dependent. So when you say nature, you're saying, look, this thing I have in my head, a category for things I find out in the world that are not man-made. What's nature? Anything that's man-made, anything that's not man-made, we call it nature. This phone here is not nature. You'd say that's man-made. It had to be man-made. Anything that's made by God, we call it nature. But you won't say made by God. You're going to say, no, it's this mysterious force called nature. Well, if there's a force behind it, say there's this unintelligent force called nature. You have to give it another name. Or you're going to have to say God. Why? Because here's the thing. If I take away the particulars, if I take away everything that you would call nature, if I take away all the rocks, all the pebbles, all the sand, all the rivers, all the oceans, all the water cycle, if I took away the trees, if I took away all the animal kingdom, if I took away everything that's nature, You would look around and be like, hey, there's no more nature. I don't have this idea of nature. Nature, the belief in nature, comes from your belief in particulars, just like your belief in forests come from trees. So if you can eliminate everything that's emergence, then you would understand what reality truly is. And you would realize that then you have to ask yourself, where's emergence coming from? Ultimately, the answer is all emergence traces itself back to God, because we are also emergence. Plot twist. Coach Zahabi is emergence. All I am is a bunch of particular cells arranged in a certain way. The mind, though, is just emergence. So emergence is giving birth to emergence. You see the dilemma. Emergence, my mind, which is emergence, is giving birth to more emergence. Where did my mind emerge from? So in nominalism, we understand that here's where it gets really complicated. And if I haven't confused everybody yet, I apologize, but this is going to get more complicated. You realize that, I'll call it the point of awareness. Every human being has a point of awareness within them. They have a mind, a point of awareness. You start to realize that even my concept of in and out is emergence. Even my whole idea of physics. I'm not going to talk about Berkeley's triangle now because I've done it before in the past, but everything is emergence. There's only this nucleus that seems within me, but then in and out is emergence. Everything is emergence. Then you realize there's only a point. There's only this one thing. And interestingly enough, in the Quran, God calls himself a thing. There's a part in the Quran where God refers to himself as a thing. There's another part in the Quran where it says, everywhere you look, you see the face of God. Now, people think, oh, you mean the world is God, everything out in the world. No, you realize the whole world is contained in that one point. Think about it. Within you, there's a point of awareness, but your belief of in and out is also an illusion. This thing is not within you, you're within it. Once you hit this level of understanding, wow, not 0.000000001% of humanity will ever understand this. Even in and out is emergence. So there's only this one point. That's why people will say, mystics will say the oneness. They've experienced the oneness. There's a oneness. Everything is contained within it. It's not contained within things. Everything is contained within it. It encompasses everything. Nothing encompasses it. And it is a thing. So, this is complicated stuff. I probably didn't do a good job of explaining it because it's like a lifetime of thinking condensed in a handful of minutes. Okay, guys, okay, it's back. The chat is back. Coach, any plans for Eid? That's from Draco Easy. Draco, well, I'm going to wish you all a great Eid, that's for sure. I don't know, when is Eid? When is Eid 2025? Let me look that up. I'm excited for Eid. 2025 Eid, Canada. Let's see. Is it this Sunday? Sunday, March 30th. Okay, Eid al-Fitr will take place Sunday. That's beautiful. Guys, I filmed my latest instructional. It's Guillotine Escapes. I'm so happy. That means I don't have to film this Sunday. It's going to be Eid this Sunday. I'm going to spend an incredible day at the mosque with the family. It's going to be it's a beautiful day. It's going to be a memorable day, a day I'm sure I'll remember the rest of my life. I always remember Eid day with the family, especially if it happens that I have the day off completely. I'm going to spend some much needed time with me and my family, and I hope and I wish, inshallah, for all of you out there, you're going to have the same experience. It falls on a Sunday where I don't have to film. Alhamdulillah, this is a great Sunday for me. It's very rare that I don't have to work or do something on Sunday. I'm really, really happy and excited about this. Missed my super chat. Have you heard of Alex O'Connor, young philosopher with an Oxford PhD and on theology? Has a big podcast and YouTube channel. Would be awesome to see you on there. That's from Unique Snoop. Unique Snoop, send him a message. Okay, I would love to do his podcast. I know who he is. I think he's a very intelligent and very well spoken. And what I love about him, he's a respectful human being. He has very good adab. He has a good, mannerism. He's a very gentle, sweet human being, it seems. I haven't watched all his videos. Maybe he has videos where he's being nasty, but other than from all the videos I've seen of him, he was always a gentleman. Always a gentleman and a scholar. And I think that he's an honest person. He has an honest approach. So I would definitely have a talk with him. Absolutely. Without a doubt. My only thing, guys, for me is time, you know. That's the thing is I'm in the gym 7 days a week. I have a grueling schedule. But for him, I would make time. I would make time because of his good manners. You know, me, I love good manners. Very important to me. TYSM, I made me list, which include... What's TYSM? Hold on, let me look that up. TYSM. Thank you so much. Okay. I love how you saved yourself a little bit of time by writing TYSM. Thank you so much. I made me list, which include not letting them get head control. I will now study butterfly guard. Oh, that's from Levik. Levik, you're the guy with the bad neck? Yes. Don't let them get your neck. Don't let them grab your neck because obviously if you're the man with the 3 bad vertebrae. Coach, does God follow might is right? And is that why God has to be almighty for objective morality? That's from Honorable Warrior. Look, that's actually a very complex topic, but I would tell you, I think it's a mix of the two. Some things are right and wrong because God says so, and some things are right and wrong because they have the germ of evil or good within them. So I believe it's a mix of the two. Like, for instance, in this world, we can't drink alcohol. In the next world, we say we can drink wine. Now, it's a different wine, true, but it's still wine, right? So I think some things have the germ of evil within them. Some of them do not. Missed my super chat too. Have you had a chance to try a wrist ride, MMA glove, Velcro cover? That's from Harris. Harris, I forgot again. I apologize. I will try again, my friend. Please forgive me. I forgot. So do you agree that our personality is an illusion? Because I do, LOL. That's from Steven. I believe our personality is subjective. I believe it's true. I believe it exists. Because don't forget what George Berkeley says. To be is to be perceived. Est percepi. To be is to be perceived. If something is perceived, it exists. If something is perceived, it must exist. You're perceiving it. Now, it could exist as an illusion, of course. Because something is perceived doesn't mean it exists in a particular way. It just means it exists. It exists in a certain... It has some existence. Like, for instance, if I think of an apple in my head and I see an apple on a desk, those are two different levels of existence. They exist in different ways, but they do exist. Okay? So think about this. If I think of an apple in my head, I might get up and go to the fridge and get an apple. So an idea in my head, which some people say is not real, caused me to get up and get something that you would say is real. So an idea in my head changed the physical world. Well, if ideas in my head changed the physical world, it got me to get up out of my chair and go get an apple. There's one less apple in the world. I ate an apple. And why did I eat the apple? Because I saw an apple in my head. I'm like, I can go for an apple. And I got up. So ideas can change the physical world. The physical world can change ideas. There's an interplay between them. Philosophers, we talk about this all the time. It's called the mind-body problem. How do ideas move the body? How does the body come up with ideas? How come matter has ideas? Why do building blocks have ideas? That's crazy. Okay. So this is the mind-body problem. There's lots to be said about this. Now, is the mind an illusion? I don't think it is, because think about this. Think about this. This is really powerful. I have sometimes atheists, they tell me, no, mind is an illusion. It's a trick of the mind. Daniel Dennett said this, okay? I had one philosopher, I told this story before, but one time I was sitting at a dinner after a fight. We're celebrating, celebratory dinner. And this young guy walks up to me, sits down on my table, and it was a big group of people. We're all celebrating a big win. And he's like, Coach, I know everything about you. And he goes, I know so much about Islam. He's like, I'm an atheist, but I know so much about Islam. I'm like, really? And he's like, I listen to your videos. And he's like, I'm a big fan. I'm like, okay, that's cool, man. You know, hi, how are you? And we started dialoguing, and he was telling me he's an engineer, and he works in Saudi Arabia, so he learned a lot about Islam, but he's like, he doesn't believe in any God. So he's quite profound guy. We got into this conversation, and I'm not joking. I'm totally honest about what's going on here. So he starts telling me the mind is an illusion. All metaphysics don't exist. I'm wrong to believe metaphysics exist, etc. It's all material, and that's it. The atheists are right. It's atoms and the void. Everything is just information, and that's it. The mind doesn't exist. The mind is an illusion. He's a Daniel Dennett believer. So look at what I did. I punched him. Bang! I punched him right in the chest. He's like, ah. He's like, oh, coach, you're crazy? I punched him again. Paf! And he's like, ah, man, you hurt me. I said, no, I didn't hurt you. I just gave you information. I just rearranged matter. I just moved around some matter. There's no mind. The mind is an illusion. And he's like, coach, I punched him again. Because nobody falls down, breaks their legs, is in agony, and it's like, oh, my mind is an illusion. Nobody. Everybody's like, this is real. Bro, this hurts. I'm having an innate experience of pain. Forget your logic and your philosophies. I want you to live your philosophy right now. So look, and the Quran actually makes mention of this. When someone goes to hell, God says to them in the Quran, says, this is for what you used to deny. You used to deny all this stuff. You used to deny metaphysics. You used to deny the afterlife. You denied the things that were not immediate. But also the Quran asks you, don't you reflect on your own self? Part of you is metaphysics. That's what the Quran is telling us. It tells us, look, you're part world, you're part made of matter, and you're part metaphysics. You live this duality. The Quran says a lot of things, okay? It's not a complete argument here. I'm not giving you the complete argument. It's giving you more arguments. But if you put them all together, the Quran is painting you a picture. That do you deny your own self? Like, do you deny? Because in the Quran it says, if you deny yourself, you've denied God. If you denied God, you've denied yourself. If you forget God, you forgot yourself. Meaning there's a connection between you and God. If metaphysics is not real, there's no soul, because they say there's no soul, there's no mind, there's no. Okay, well, me punching you in your chest shouldn't be a problem. I'm just rearranging matter. I'm just moving matter around. I'm bumping two rocks together. It's just two rocks. It's just matter colliding with matter. I said, look, I'll stop when you admit there's metaphysics. And he quickly admitted there's metaphysics. And then I gave him a hug and a pat on the back. And I said, look, you see, you couldn't live your philosophy. Your philosophy was a dead end. You capitulated. And he started, he had to think about it, because that's what Islam is. Islam and mysticism, we say, don't taste. You know it by taste. Okay, that's a complex topic, but you had a first-hand experience of existence and reality and metaphysics. You know metaphysics by first-hand experience. Now think about this. The Quran asks you to reflect on this. And this is Ramadan. It's appropriate to talk about the Quran. When you were born, you were hungry. Guess what? You got food. How did you get food? Don't worry. That was all taken care of. Don't worry about it. You needed warmth. Warmth came to you. Look at you. If you're alive today, if you're an adult and you're understanding my words, you got past infancy. You had to be loved, warm, cold, given drink. You had to be given food. Somebody had to clean you. Like, you got here, man. You had all these needs. You had all these desires, and they were taken care of. 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 And think about it. You have a stomach. You're hungry. There's food. There's nothing illogical. There's nothing illogical about a universe where people are hungry. They're born hungry and they die hungry. There's no contradiction here. In metaphysics, when we study metaphysics, we talk about possible worlds. We live in a certain world, but the world could have been otherwise. It could have been another way. There could have been a world where the color blue doesn't exist. Imagine a world exactly like ours, except the color blue doesn't exist. Everywhere there's the color blue, replace it with green. Green exists, but blue doesn't. Nothing illogical about that. Nothing impossible. Now, if I say, imagine a world where there's squared circles. Well, that's impossible. There is no world ever. And there will never be a world where there's a squared circle. That would lead to a contradiction. There is a possible world where you're born, you survive and reproduce. You get sunlight, you get energy from sunlight, whatnot, and you have always hunger, but there's nothing to eat. You reproduce, you die a miserable death, but you always had that feeling of hunger, but there was never a juicy apple or a piece of bread or anything to eat. Never. There is nothing contradictory about that. Your sustenance came from something else. Maybe it was you were able to photosynthesize. Now the Quran tells you, look, reflect. Every desire you ever had, there was always a relief. For every desire, there's a relief. And the Quran says it twice in a row. It's very interesting, because your desire and relief is always cyclical. Think about it. You are hungry, you eat, and then you're hungry again. It's always a cycle. You wake up, you're refreshed. You get tired, you go to sleep. When you sleep, you feel refreshed again. There's a cycle of desire and relief, desire and relief, desire and relief. Every single desire you ever had, there was a relief. There was always a way to satisfy the desire. Human beings have zero desires that cannot be satisfied. And the Quran tells you, look, God put it within you, the desire to live forever. To live in a world that's just, fair, beautiful, amazing, a paradise. You have that desire. God's telling you in the Quran, did you think I satisfied all these desires and the next one I won't satisfy it? Now you might say, yes, Coach, but logically speaking, that's a faith. Because something happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. Yes, in the past you had desires, and yes, they were relieved. But it doesn't mean the future one will be relieved. Well, that's exactly the argument that science faces. Don't forget. To say that my Quranic argument is untrue, is you have to equally say that science is untrue. You have to take down the whole intellectual endeavor. We have to tear down the academies, all of them. We have to tear down everything we know about logic and science. Why? Because let me tell you something. For those of you who are not in the know, believe me, philosophers of science, we understand this very well. Science is predicated, it rests on the axiom or the postulate that the future will behave like the past. That's why scientific experiments have to be repeatable. If I conduct a scientific experiment, I have to give you the parameters and you have to be able to recreate it. If you can't recreate it, my scientific experiment is void and nil. It's not considered true. It rests on the axiom that the future will behave like the past. Well, the Quran is telling you, don't you think that the future will behave like the past? Like you were born in this world, you'll be born in the next. And like you have the desire to live forever and live in a world that's free of disease, misery, sorrow, etc. Don't you think I'll fulfill that desire? Because if God is real, He can fulfill any desire. So this is the reasoning in the Quran. The Quran is telling you, look, all your desires were fulfilled. Even the child that was dead, that died in infancy, he was relieved of his pain. Every which way you look at it. You come in this world, there's pain and there's a relief. No matter how you slice it, every human being that ever existed went through some pain and was relieved of his pain. So you have this pain of wanting to live forever. You know, somebody dies in your family, like, I want to be reconnected with them. Well, just like you came into this world, just like you have a mind, there's no explanation for it, no scientific explanation for it. There doesn't have to be. You've lived it. You've lived your experience of having your desires met. Your future desires will be met. That's why in Islamic theology, they tell you, ask God for absolutely anything. That's halal. Ask for anything. You're going to get it. There's no limit. There is no limit to what you can have. Any desire a human being has, eventually it will be fulfilled. If you're a good person. If you're not if you're an evil person. If you're devoted to God, yes, everything, absolutely anything will be given to you. So this is our theology, our way of thinking. Because our needs were met in the past, they will be met in the future. How? Man, when I was a baby, you think I knew how my needs were met? I don't know. Now you're asking me to explain to you how the afterlife works? No, I can't explain it to you. All I know is, like I was non-existence, I came into existence. I'm going to go back into non-existence. I'm going to go back to where I came from. That's why the Quran says, you came from God, you're going to return back to God. You originated from God, you're going to return back to Him when you die. Yeah, of course, this is what we believe. You know, and I find it to be very logical. Why? Because I'm living the experience. I used to not exist. Look at me. Look where I am. I exist here. And poor little Richard Dawkins, he thinks with his small fraction of, you know, if knowledge was an ocean, human beings, we don't even have one drop. We don't even have one drop of what there is to know. True knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Every time you learn something, you realize, wow, there must be so many other things I don't know. Now that I learned this one thing, there's 10,000 new questions about this thing. There's so much to know. So this is in a nutshell. Coach, I believe hell is there for the same reason. You punch the guy in the chest. If you're not going to acknowledge the truth willingly, in this life, we will have to do it the hard way forever. That's from Anis. Listen, I think hell is there to punish evil people. Now, I would tell you that you have to be very careful because, like, there's some people who are good, but they were misinformed. Because there is a culture of the day to ignore and to think in a certain way. I think the people who put these wheels in motion, they're going to be punished for these people who are misinformed. And that's why I would tell people who are like, they egg on like extremists who give a religion a bad name. Because don't lie to yourself. Look, there's a lot of Muslims and Christians and Jews out there that give religion a really bad name. And don't forget, in the Islamic tradition, we call them Khawarij. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ always told us they're the worst of humanity. Who's the worst of humanity? The extremist Muslim. Now, they're Muslim, but in our tradition, they're the worst of humanity. Think about that. Why are they the worst of humanity? Because they're giving Islam a bad name. The Quran says explicitly, don't go to extremes. So people think, no, they're the most Muslim. That's why they're doing that, because they're so. That's what Sam Harris tries to tell everybody. If you're not Taliban, and you're not. If you're not, I'm not trying to say. I don't know much about the Taliban. Okay, but I don't know if they qualify as extremists. I'm not an expert. Okay, I'd have to like ask an expert. I don't know much about the Taliban. But he's saying like, if you're not an extremist, then you're not a real Muslim. No, he's wrong. He's completely wrong. Sam Harris is just a hater. He's so full of hatred towards Islam. No, if you're an extremist, you're Khawarij. You're still Muslim, but you're the worst of humanity. Why? Because you're giving Muslims a bad name. In Islam, you can never hunt people down, shoot them, kill them, starve them, step on their head. You cannot do this. Okay? You look at the tradition of the Muslims, the earliest Muslims never did any of this. Ever. They did the opposite. They warred with governments, but never the people. People are innocent. Civilians are innocent. You can't go to war with a government, strictly with a government. Yes, the Muslims went to war with the pagans, but you have to remember the pagans. At first, the Muslims tried to live with the pagans. At first, you know how would Muslims circle Mecca? The first year they did it with the pagans. Imagine monotheists and pagans circling Mecca together in harmony. But the pagans, don't forget, here's what people don't know about the Abrahamic faiths and the pagans. We had wars since the time of Abraham and Moses. Okay? There's one thing that makes us fundamentally incompatible. There's one thing: child sacrifice. If you look at the Abrahamic faith, Abraham is told, sacrifice your son. God tells him, sacrifice your son. And then God doesn't let him sacrifice. You guys know the story. His blade goes dull. God gives him a sacrificial lamb, and then he sacrifices the lamb in place of the son. Ending any controversy, should I sacrifice my child for God? The answer is a resounding no. Judaism, Christianity, Islam says no. Do not sacrifice your son. The pagans, sacrifice your son. Islam, Judaism, Christianity is trying to tell paganism, do not do that. That's not what God wants. Even if God directly tells you, you think you're higher than Abraham, you can't be higher than Abraham. God didn't allow Abraham to give his son. Abraham's son is above your son. He's Abraham. You understand? Alayhi salam. The Abrahamic religions are saying no sacrificial humans. None. Zero. Pagans still sacrificing humans. It's in the Quran. The Quran criticizes them for sacrificing their children. And that's why they were fundamentally incompatible. Whereas Christians and Jews were taken under the umbrella of Islam during the expansion and freely allowed to have autonomy, practice your religion. There are churches that exist over 1,000 years only because of Muslim rule, because Muslim rule protected them. Okay? So now there are some Muslims who are extremists. We have to call them out. We have to reprimand them. We have to say, look, there were Muslims that destroyed churches, and that was wrong. But the early Muslims that did it the right way, the traditional way, the way it's supposed to be done, the early Muslims were not corrupted. Okay, they were real devoted to the faith. They didn't destroy churches. I love the Taliban. They reject feminism and keep their women in line. That's from New Britain Poly. New Britain Poly, look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not super well versed in them. I should know more because they're coming up more often. But from what I've seen, they've gone to an extreme. Okay, because I don't think we should repress women. Okay, feminism is a byproduct of men treating women badly. Why do you think women fight for supremacy? They're gonna organize themselves. They're gonna get together and they're gonna say, look, we want our rights. We want this and that. And it's always gonna happen. You're always gonna have rebellion. You're always gonna have friction with a group when they're not treated fairly. I think personally, women love to be taken care of. I think instinctually a woman, she wants to find a rich guy. Why? Because he's gonna, maybe not, I'm not saying he has to be a billionaire, but the guy has to be well off. He has to be able to provide and protect. And I think that's a very deep instinct a woman is born with. Why? When she's pregnant, she's vulnerable and she needs somebody to bring her and her children resources. If she marries a guy who's not willing to protect or provide, when she's having kids, and don't forget, whether she wants to have kids or not is irrelevant. Her instinct in picking a mate, she knows she's going to be vulnerable when she has a mate. She's going to be with child. She can't run. She can't climb a tree. She can't do these things. She's limited for a long period of time. And then she has children to feed and take care of, etc. She needs a protector and a provider. She needs much more than that, of course, but those are the two most fundamental, I think, attributes a woman looks for in a man. A woman loves to be taken care of. And I personally love to take care of my wife. I love to have everything taken care of for my wife. And I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world. And I love to take care of my parents and my family and everybody. That whenever I take care of my family members and friends, I feel always good inside. Instead of buying like stupid pair of shoes that cost a ton of money, I'd rather take care of my family. I think women love that. I remember when I was married with my wife, she would bring her friend to our dinners. I would take them out to dinner or whatever, we go out to eat. And I would pay for her, of course, my wife, of course, and her friend as well. I'll pay. And you should see her friend would light up. Like she's so shocked that, of course I'm going to pay for you. If I invite you to dinner, I'm paying. This is our culture, Muslim culture, Lebanese culture. Now, in Quebec culture, everybody pays for themselves. Even couples that are married, they pay for themselves. Like I've made friends with a French couple here. My wife and me, we're friends with a French couple. They split the groceries. Me, if my wife buys the groceries, she pays for it. If I buy the groceries, I pay for it. We pay for each other. We're feeding each other. It's not a big deal. Them, no, they come home. This is how much it costs. You owe me this. You owe me that. I don't eat this. You don't eat that. So they split it. There's no paying for each other. Everybody has their finances. Everybody pays for themselves. It's very alien to us. Very alien to their mind, to Muslim mind. Very alien. I think women personally like it. And I think feminism would die away if men treated women well. And also, if men stopped buying OnlyFans. I think if you're buying OnlyFans, if you send money, to women, man, I think you're part of the problem. If you follow any girl in a bikini on Instagram, I want you guys to go on Instagram and Facebook and all that and unfollow every girl who puts up anything indecent. Unfollow her. Unfollow. There needs to be a drop in followers for these women. Then these women will start to treat you with respect. And then these women will be like, hey, I should cover up. I should have more respect for myself and my society. But men have capitulated. They've become mentally weak. Because you know what women think? When you follow them, when they're in a bikini and you follow them, when they're doing something promiscuous online and you praise them because you think you're going to get some, they think, oh, that's power. The next generation of girls are like, oh, I want to be powerful like this girl. I'm going to do the same thing. They repeat the same process. And what happens? Well, look what's happened in society. Trying to find a nice girl to settle down with. Good luck. Try in the West to settle down with a nice girl. Good luck, my friends. It'll be a difficult task. Yeah, check out Strong and Stable Neck, man. I can't talk about it again because we've done this too many times. It's a repetitive question. I've grandfathered that question. And this is Super Chat. What is a good idea for GSP to reveal that it was easy to beat the PED test? ? I'm not accusing him of anything, of course, but that type of revelation will inevitably cause some to raise an eyebrow. This is from Nomer. I don't know. I think you're accusing him of PEDs and then you're saying you're not accusing him. Let me reread that because let me put my actually I didn't bring my glasses. Okay. What is a good idea for GSP? Excuse me. My glasses are not on. It's what was it a good idea? Pardon me, guys. Pardon me. I'm fasting too, don't forget. Was it a good idea for GSP to reveal that was easy to beat the PAD test? Question mark. No, he wasn't revealing that it's easy to beat the PAD test. He was saying that back in his day, when you were tested, people were tested on the Friday or Saturday. So before your fight or after your fight. At that moment, it's an IQ test because you know you're being tested on that weekend. He was saying it was easy for people to beat the PED test because they know when they're getting tested. There was no random testing. Don't forget, to my knowledge, the first athlete to do random testing was George St. Pierre. He volunteered to pay for it. He paid for it. I think it was his fight with BJ Penn. Him and BJ made an agreement. So BJ Penn and George St. Pierre were the first athletes to voluntarily test themselves randomly for blood and urine. Okay, I wanted hair, blood, and urine. Personally asked for hair also. But they said these guys shave their heads. It's better to just do urine and blood. Okay, I was like, blood is fine. Because I was going to make George grow out his hair. Make BJ Penn grow out his hair. And I really believe BJ Penn was steroid free at the time as well. But I wanted to make a point for everybody. We should all test this way. So they agreed to blood and urine. They did it. I commend George and BJ Penn for doing it. And then UFC started realizing they need to start testing their athletes because this could be very dangerous. People can die. And they started doing it. But George was the first one to say it has to be done randomly. It has to be done on a regular basis. It has to be blood and urine, not just urine, etc. Now, most of the drug testing, to my knowledge, that they did in Vegas was all urine. So there's some drugs you cannot detect through urine. So George wasn't saying, hey, I was able to get past the test. Of course not. He would never say that. He was saying people could abuse the test because they know when it's coming. There's a lot of ways to get around it if you know the day. It's much harder if it's random and they're taking blood. So I think you just misunderstood him. All right, guys, what else we got here? Please explain about the weakness of half guard. That's from Carl Hewitt. Hewitt, I went on a whole spiel earlier. It's complicated to learn. If you're a little bit off, the whole thing can collapse. The guy's moves on top of you are really, really strong. His counters are very strong. It has some advantages. It creates connection. It creates connection. It's easy to pull. You can pull half guard. It's not so bad to pull. Like you shoot, the guy sprawls on you. You can pull half guard easier than maybe full guard. Look, I use half guard all the time. I think half guard is really important. But it's not my favorite guard. It costs a lot of energy. If things go wrong, you can get really busted up. Look at Nogueira. He used half guard a few times and he got busted up. But he has a chin of steel. He survived the storm. A lot of guys will get knocked out there. Look, maybe in the future I reconsider. But right now, I just don't see half guard as being like the go-to guard for MMA. It's just my personal preference. Coach, did you hear about Little Ray Black, a porn star that converted to Islam because of Muslim manners and behavior in Indonesia? Little Ray Black. Well, I won't Google that, but let me see actually if I YouTube it. YouTube it will censor. Little Ray Black. I did see Little Ray Black. So, what? Okay, she's an Indonesian girl. Okay, well, look, I'm happy for her. I don't know much. I don't know anything about her. I did see a thumbnail going from Korn to Islam. I did see a thumbnail. I didn't click on it. I didn't listen to it, but I did remember seeing a thumbnail. It does seem to be her. She's an Asian woman. So, yes, congratulations to her. I'm happy to hear that for her. Hey, Coach, I made a trip to Montreal and stopped by the gym, but I got lost in the parking lot and missed class. Hope to catch you next time. That's from the Spectre. Spectre, at night, after 5 p.m., you can park anywhere around the building. There's no need to get lost. Just park anywhere around the building. You're fine. And I don't know how you can get lost in the parking lot. This is not, I mean, the building's not miles long. I think you just didn't want to come in. I think you had second thoughts. But next time, please do drop by. Experience it. Just like him, someone can hear about God and can now talk to you about him without having an experience. Love from Greece. That's from somebody with a Greek name. Well, from Greece, from Canada to Greece, my friend. Thank you for that comment. And yes, I've talked about this in the past. I won't go into it again, but there are other ways we know how we've had experience of God. I don't believe atheists exist. Okay, so I don't believe it exists. Every time I talk to an atheist, I always try to explain to them why I don't believe they exist. Some agree with me, some don't agree with me. I think it's more psychology than logic. I think God is abundantly clear and obvious. People who don't believe in God, I think it's psychological. I don't think it has a question with logic. I don't think it has anything to do with logic. I think it's psychology. Hey, coaches, Ivan Menjivar still trained. That's from Charles. Charles, he just came in the gym yesterday. He had another child. Okay, so I told him I'm going to have him snipped on the mat at TriStar. We're going to hold him down and snip him. I won't say how many children he has because I don't know if he wants to share that information, but he was gone for a while because he had another child. And I told him, we will now snip him. We will snip him on the mat. We will fix this issue because the man has had enough children. I love Ivan Menjivar to death. Me and him are super close. He's a great guy. And we kind of had a laugh about it. I congratulate him. I'm very happy for him to have another child. Congratulations to Ivan Menjivar, the Menjivar family. Congratulations on the new addition. And I think, he's at the age now where he needs to call it a day. So congratulations on to him. We had a little bit of a laugh. I would be happy to see him have more kids, but I don't know if he's got the energy for that. I think he's pretty maxed out. Ali Karim, go do your research on Google, man. Ali Karim, let's see. Ali Karim. I always learn new things from you guys. Ali Karim. Iranian football coach. Okay, I guess you must have been talking to somebody in the chat. Hey, coach, what was Master Peter like in the clinch? That's from Andrew Smart. Guys, if you don't know, a few years ago, I lost my beloved Muay Thai trainer. He was an incredible clincher. Muay Thai Master Peter, if you touched his traps, I'm not joking, okay? They were as hard as iron. Every single trainer I ever worked with, every single superstar athlete I ever worked with. And I would always call Peter over and have them feel his traps. Everybody would always be amazed, freak out. They were like, what? What is this? His traps were unbelievably dense. Clinching him was almost impossible. One, he has no neck. Grabbing onto him was like grabbing onto a cinder block. He would just throw you off. He had a very strong center of gravity. He was very good at picking people up because of his massive back and foot sweeping them. He was impossible to clinch. He spent decades clinching in Thailand as a youth. The man was incredibly durable. And when he would get massaged, he would lie down in the gym on a regular basis, have the biggest, fattest, hugest, monstrous human being step on him, and it was never heavy enough. He would have like 3-4 full-grown giants, adults, stepping on his back, and it's still not enough relief, not strong enough, not enough pressure. The man was a freak. In terms of bone density, muscular density, it was insane how strong and physically robust he was. Mashallah. Coach, how to stay out of fight or flight with a stressful, busy schedule? That's from Sparky No Pal. Sparky, I would tell you breathing. Find a good breathing exercise. I show one in my book, Fasting for Fitness. Sorry guys, I'm in a hardcore fast right now, so I went to the gym today, spent the whole day in the gym, so I'm a little bit tired. Get Fasting for Fitness. I talk about one very particular breathing exercise that's very, very strong, and it will help also keep your hunger in check. So check out Fasting for Fitness, a really good book I recommend, okay, for how to fast if you're doing sports. And breathing techniques are paramount for keeping the mind calm. Okay, guys, please, no more super chats. I'm going to end it very shortly. We've been going strong, an hour and 52 minutes. Let's end it on something fun. Looking forward to meeting you, Coach. Very excited. When you prepare GSP for the first UFC fight. Was there anything stood out differently than the rest? Speed, ? Movement. That's from Shiz. Shiz, my boy. Thank you for that donation again, for that super chat. George was incredibly nervous on his first fight, but even more nervous, I think, than ever. I remember we were at the Mandalay Bay, and we were both super nervous. And he sat down on the bench. It was hours before his fight. And he looked at me and he said, say something to make me feel better. He's like, please, say anything. He was so nervous. We were going to America to fight in UFC. It was like too big. It was a huge moment for us. We were so nervous. And he was telling me, say anything to make me feel better. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know what to say. I've grown a lot since then. I was like, you're going to do fine. You're going to do good. Just focus on, your breathing. I don't even know anything about breathing back then. I was like, you're going to do fine. I was just trying to pump him up. You're going to do great. You're going to do great. And look, after the fight, he was relieved. He was the happiest guy. He was probably one of the happiest people on the face of the earth at that moment. But going up to the fight, he was a nervous wreck. And I think worse than ever. That was the time I think I seen him the most nervous ever. He was actually telling me, look, say something to make me feel better. Because I think he had a doubt if he can go in. I wasn't sure. I saw him he was white as a ghost. He was in his most dire moment. Guys, with that said, I think I'm going to end it on this one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. As usual, please use the promo code, get 55 off, and buy anything you like on jujitsuclub.com. It's the best instructionals for the best price. I promise you will never find anything at this quality for this price. I put my heart and soul to making sure that these instructionals are top-notch, and the price is unbeatable. Create a collection at jujitsuclub.com and up your game. See you all in the next episode. Thank you.